Hey, I've been looking at some old licensed and forgotten DS games on the DS lately, and since you guys have been leaving so many lovely comments of games for me to check out, I went ahead and played another 11 games to find the swag games that everyone else forgot about. There's a swag, the rage-inducing, and a game that's been haunting me since I was 9 years old. This thing has been the bane of my existence for years, and I not only picked it up again, but fully beat it. When I was 9, I was allowed one game for free because we were moving, and I picked Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Stardust Accelerator World Championship 2009, because I am cursed to be this way for the rest of my life. This is a simple card game simulator on the surface, and it is, in the sense that the house always wins. As a Yu-Gi-Oh! Simulator, it is excellent, especially as a peek into the exact era in which it was created. It's got the cards, and playing a pre-space travel-sized shark jump version being guided by a computer is huge. Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be hard to wrap your head around since it's changing constantly on fundamental levels, so having a game that can guide you a little by just having misplays hard-coded out is really nice. It does the thing that the best in the genre do by letting you make an OC and affecting the plot, and this game even lets you play as a girl, even if some pronouns in the script got missed. So if there's show-accurate gameplay, interactions with the characters, and overall a strong connection to the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, then I'm sure you're wondering why I'm being so ominous about it. Stardust Accelerator fulfills the promise of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Sim with the curl of a monkey's paw. If you want to progress, you will be limited by your starter deck, and your opponents aren't chumps. They play some of the strongest possible combinations in the game. You similarly need a deck with a very high level of consistency and power to clear the story mode, and in order to unlock the required card packs, you need to do the following. Duel and win against every NPC you come across in the campaign 5 times, which will then unlock World Championship opponents who you will also need to duel and defeat 5 times. If you want to experience the full story of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stardust Accelerator, which I very much did, you need to discover that these requirements exist at all, have the patience to weather dozens of repeat encounters that can each take up to 10 or 15 minutes, and have the luck to pull multiple rare cards from packs with your limited resources in order to build a deck strong enough to clear the game, which, by the way, ends with a final boss rush where you have to fight the 4 strongest decks back-to-back with health carrying over. This game isn't just unfair, it is actively hostile to the player. It doesn't just disrespect your time, it asks you to pour hundreds of hours into the experience. It is for the obsessed, the deranged, it is made for me. And it left a large enough impression on me that when I brought up this video game to my dad, he immediately recalled how sad I had looked when I had gotten stuck as a kid. My parents once called me by our dog's name, so this is a big deal. So while I normally just skim the games I play for these videos, I decided that by the end, I would need to beat Stardust Accelerator. We'll get back to Yu-Gi-Oh!, but first, you ever see a game with a suck stat? Pray the stars as you bite, lick, and suck your way to victory with some of the most fun Y2K era mascot design I've seen in a long time. I'm a big fan of the art style. It's so simple but sharp, and cute in the way that a baby eating a lemon is cute. It's the Scrungle. You are little guy. You hunger. You will eat anything or anyone, and along the way you unlock the powers of a demigod to save the world. And you can do it dressed as a strawberry. The gameplay seems simple at first, but as you work through tutorials, it quickly becomes a mess of management, in the fun way. Managing your size, arranging which order you eat items to get power-ups, trying to knock your opponents off the map, and the little timing and button press quirks of each item make what would otherwise be a boring button basher into a masterful mess of managing means. If this game released today with Wi-Fi play, I would genuinely be begging my friends to play it over Discord, especially since there's a ton of costumes you can unlock and upgrade to customize your appearance and stats. Gabu Gabu Sweep 20XX, the best! Are games like these shovelware though? I've been reading y'all's comments, and it seems like when a game has a big enough publisher behind it, or even if the game is just competent enough, then that game doesn't qualify as shovelware anymore. The Wikipedia definition is just when stuff gets added to a game or package to make it have more stuff, like those 500 games in one things, but people are so quick to call stuff like Carnival games or Disney princesses on the DS shovelware, mostly because their short experiences are tied with a license. That seems to be the consensus these days, but then a game like Balan Wonderworld releases and you have people in the comments calling that shovelware too. I think the move for me is to take games that are cheap and unappreciated that might have been written off because of their license or negative reception, or even just the fact that they're games aimed at girls, and check them out for what they are. If we keep writing off the weird, the small, and the old, then we miss out on the majority of video games out there, and that's just a shame. So, sometimes I might sneak in something that isn't really shovelware, but I swear it's more so that I can show y'all something cool than trying to, clickbait or whatever. And this next one is a game y'all have asked for, so here we go. This game has Duck Cube. I'm sorry, but it's an instant classic. Listen, I get a lot of game requests, but Zubo had to be the most frequent one. And I mean, come on, it's got Duck GameCube. Masterpiece. This is a monster collector RPG that has more similarities to a JRPG than to whatever genre Pokemon is now. You're dropped into the world either as a boy or a girl and have to save all the Zubos from the Zombos and your standard let's go fight the evil wizard plot. It's got a timed battle system, and if you hit your attacks just right, there's a chance you get an extra turn. It's got a little element of resource management and rock, paper, scissors on top of all that too, so it stays complex enough to not just zone out and button mash in a trance of brutal beating buffoonery. The animations in battle are quite nice, super expressive and squashy and stretchy. Not a fan of the fart attack though. This game is really intentional with its encounters too, or at least the first section is. Your first Zubo friend is a hyper-stereotyped UK punk rocker who's hot pink. If this has not sold you on the game, you are terminal. But what is a Zubo? Serious question, because this game did not explain it to me. There was no marketing push outside of the game release itself, and the pilot for the Zubo show is actually lost media. No one's even sure if it got made, which is a shame, because these characters are real fun in a sort of hyper-stereotype, infinite spiral of irony type beat that circles around to just silly fun. The environments and music are similarly stylized, chunky, silly, and altogether wacky in a way that makes it fun to run through these forest hallways. I'm not even sure if I got past the tutorial during my time with the game, but from what I played, I wouldn't mind a whole lot more. I am going to talk about Bakugan again now. Bakugan Battle Brawlers Battle Trainer, also known as BT by the real ones, is the second Bakugan game on the DS. Once again, I am having a Bakugan moment, and this time, I'm a little disappointed. The soundtrack? So dang vibey. The music in the training room has all the synthy blown out guitar influences that I look for in the music I keep on my phone. The art? Wonderful, weird, tech monster, sci-fi kaiju 2000 slop. I'm here for it all the way. The writing? It's about as good as the most average moments of the show, but the story and gameplay leave a lot to be desired. The title doesn't lie, this game is about training Bakugan for battle, mainly by playing minigames. There's a massive increase in strategy as you're now working with a 3v3 turn-based battle, where each Bakugan has a list of actions that they can use each of once per encounter. Elemental advantages have been introduced, and your G-Power acts as both your attack and health, decreasing after each battle. Plan well and you can sweep the opponent without having to use all your Bakugan. Button mash and you'll be sent right back to the training room. It's not a bad battle system by any means, even if the AI regularly makes the worst possible decisions in your favor, but it really loses the spirit of Bakugan. I'm not saying it's a bad game, and I won't say it's a bad Bakugan game either, but it doesn't do a good job of taking advantage of the license they have. The story is very shallow as well, which sure, that's a bit of a trend for the franchise as a whole, but it's written so that only Dan, who you play as, is the only person who can do anything about the evil invading aliens. Other games in the franchise do this too, but you play as a player avatar, which allows you to interact directly with the whole cast. By playing as Dan, this game limits its potential to engross the player in the world of Bakugan, which is where licensed games really shine. Seriously, the only other battle brawler who has a significant amount of dialogue is Marucho, and that's just because he's the mouthpiece for the tutorial. Even the villains have recycled dialogue for several of the encounters. They also have no ties to the show itself. It's just a mess in terms of integration with the world. Again, the other games weren't recreations of the show, but because there was a player character, they felt more like an alternate universe than a random story arc interrupting an already progressing storyline. This game is messy, even though the training aspect of it is admittedly cute and fun. Directly interacting with Bakugan, caring for them, and training them was a fantastic addition. Look at how happy this little guy is. Their mental health meter is completely full. I'm not going to condemn this game, but it feels more like a mobile puzzle game with RPG elements than a full adventure in the world of Bakugan. If you know what you're getting into, then it's fine. There's a couple games on here that were just kind of short, so I want to rapid fire through them since y'all seemed to like that last time. Gogo's Crazy Bones is a tie-in game for the blind bag toys of the same name, which were little plastic characters that came in different colorways and of course molds. They're a modern take on Knuckle Bones and are similar to marbles. Obviously, with all my borderline obsession with Bakugan and all things Hobby Annie, you know I wanted to check this one out. Unfortunately, the lack of a strong play pattern for Gogo shows in this game. It's Angry Birds. This game is Angry Birds. Angry Birds is good, so this game is similarly not bad, but the progression is just clearing levels and unlocking reskins of the 5 different types of Gogos you have access to. This was made during the time where smartphones existed and apps like Angry Birds already existed, but before they were so common that phones replaced handheld systems, so it's just sort of a mobile game on the DS. Dragon Booster certainly had the vibes to be something I was interested in. I mean, the title screen starts with "Release the Dragon!" so that's already got me in its corner. Dragon Booster is a dragon racing game where the dragons run, which is a weird choice, but not an inherently bad one. This game handles racing in an awkward way where you essentially have 3 speeds and have to manage boost while tapping the screen to clear obstacles and gain energy for items. You can also smack the other riders with your entire body as a projectile, which leads to some awkward but funny looking moments. The speeds being locked and the racing lines being non-existent takes away a lot of the nuance of racing. The only game off the top of my head that plays similarly is Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. The racing is fine, you can customize your dragon to have different abilities or stats, and I think you can unlock more riders as well, but the racing is the only thing there really is to engage with in this game other than just looking at it. I do not feel like I have unleashed the dragon, and that does make me sad. Onegai My Melody is a Japanese exclusive game all about My Melody and her friends. This game is chock full of cute Sanrio art, and while my Japanese isn't nearly good enough to understand what these characters are saying, I do know that their unique speech quirks are preserved. There's something about a picnic, and Kuromi does a magical girl, magic door open type thing before each level. It's real cute, especially My Melo's utter refusal to be antagonistic to anyone, including the openly hostile Kuromi. The gameplay, though. My Melody is a 2D platformer that replaces levels with an endless scrolling stage that you need to get a certain distance through in order to end the level. While this distance limit means that these levels could have been deliberately designed, they sure don't feel like it. There are no interactable objects unless you count taking damage from an enemy. All you can do in each stage is to go around to enemies and jump from platform to platform. This doesn't sound too bad until you realize Melody can't make it to nearly any of the platforms with her jump. This baffled me until I realized Melody has an umbrella. To play any stage in the game, you must constantly blow into the mic to make Melody float between platforms. And when she reaches the top of the screen, the level's scrolling slows to a crawl. This is the second worst game design choice I have ever seen. The first worst is in the game I'm covering at the end, but Melody has hands. She was willing to draw blood with this game. The vertical levels are tedious, but the horizontal levels are just plain mean. I want you to look at this and ask yourself, am I willing to sacrifice all dignity I have left to blow my DS until it finishes the level? I can't comment on the writing between the levels other than the fact that it exists and that I am illiterate, but since those and the levels are the only way this game engages with My Melody, it misses out on the sheer hangout ability of Sanrio. You can't even stop in the level to take in the music and art since it auto-scrolls. Maybe one day I can find a Sanrio game that truly captures the magic, but this one, while weird and interesting as a cultural artifact, is disappointing as an actual experience. Around now, I had picked up Yu-Gi-Oh! Stardust Accelerator again, and I was getting frustrated. I wouldn't have been so upset about not being able to complete it if I hadn't loved the game so much. The music has that exact gritty synth character to it that I love about the music from this era. The environments feel like a faithful recreation of the location from the show. The characters all look good in 2D and 3D, and of course, card games on motorcycles, which you get to customize and race for better lap times. You break out of prison and then break back in to steal your motorcycle back, only for the protagonist man to meet you outside after because he has just also broken back in to steal back his motorcycle. This is objectively the funniest plot beat in a video game. In the short arc this game's story has, which is shockingly short by the way, you rise from an amnesiac in the slums to the king of turbo duels. This game is not without merit. It's one of my personal favorites. It does so much justice by 5Ds and Yu-Gi-Oh! Nearly to a fault. Actually, it does do it to a fault, because those incomprehensible game design choices, battling every NPC 5 times, having to grind and grind for good cards only to get stomped and tourneyed by someone who just had access to better resources than you, spending a frankly absurd amount of time and money on this card game, that's exactly what playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like. I'm saying this as someone who wanted badly to get into their local scene as a kid. There was no mercy in the cards, only the most concrete of curbs for my still malleable skull to be kicked into. This is how competitive card games work, and Stardust Accelerator includes it all. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! This is exactly how I experienced it in real life as well as in the game. So I went back in with a game facts and a dream. I had never looked up the ending before, so I was hungry to beat the game. Booting up the tutorial after editing my default deck to be less sucky, I went ahead and steamrolled everyone in the starting area 5 times. I made friends, bought a motorcycle, found out I was scammed, rescued my buddy from the gang that sold us the cycle, and watched my good friend Yume escape to the city through a massive sewage pipe. If my character wanted to regain their memory, they would have to follow. I felt much of the same, as I was missing the memory of this game's end. I played my cards better than ever, and just scraping by, was able to outrun the cops by playing card games. I got arrested immediately after, but I still won. It's okay though, I dueled my way out of prison and then heisted my duel runner and cards out of the penitentiary. I was now caught up with where I had gotten stuck as a kid and had no idea what was coming next. If it's the same to y'all, I'd like to take a break from Yu-Gi-Oh for a sec and jump into something else. Gotta take it in doses. Transformers Prime on the DS. Last time I covered a 3D action game, it was Bakugan, but Transformers just knocks it out of the park. I'll be honest, I never got into the show this game is based on, so I don't have a lot of insight into how the characters are written, but this game loves putting them on screen. It has cutscenes all the time, which I can see being divisive, but I like it. Not all of them are animated, but most are voiced, and they're a fun way to break up the pacing between running people over in the robot car. And yeah, you get to do the transform in the Transformer game, and it totally rules. Vehicle mode is fast and helps you reposition, while Robo mode has more versatility when you're fighting. And if you attack while in vehicle mode, you do a shield-breaking big slide attack that's always super satisfying. Flowing between vehicle mode and Robo mode is the bread and butter of this game, and it just works so well. Also, shouts out women.
Yay!
This game has girl-coded robot and girl protagonist, and while the little girl does get kidnapped, RC Transformer has the most fun moveset of the 3 characters I played, so while that doesn't even it out, there still is some swag. Seriously though, the fast combo-based characters in action games are definitely my favorite, and between RC and Elfin, I'm starting to see patterns in this hyper-niche DS 3D action game space. The art direction nails the show, which lends itself well to the DS hardware by being heavily stylized and angular 3D, which means designs transfer to low poly with little sacrifice. There's a lot of little stuff I can nitpick, but honestly this game is just about being Transformer and punching robots while having epic story moments, and I can't fault that. Is good. This game jump scared me with the Beatles. I have not recovered. Both I and you guys have wanted to see an Imagine series game as well as a fashion game, so I went ahead and chose a game that's just okay at being both of those things. Imagine Fashion Designer New York is a game with the book format where you turn the DS sideways. I actually love this, especially since this whole game is about fashion, which means a portrait shot gives more resolution to a singular model. Does this transfer well to a 16:9 aspect ratio? Let's do this one quick. 2000s? This is the most. You get cool iPhone. This game's soundtrack consists of ambient jazz, a little bit of D&B, and licensed music that feels very, very out of place. There's unlockable clothes and hairstyles too, which makes a lot of sense. I will say that the default hairstyles do skew towards straight or maybe very slightly wavy hair, which feels like a sad limitation to the amount of creative expression available. The story also very much feels like it was written by kit-bashing Disney Channel original movie tropes into the most girl character who is a girl story I have seen in a very long time. Those tropes aren't necessarily bad on their own, but I feel like they could have tried a little harder to not have the plot revolve around gaining men's approval. I also don't know how to feel about the third mission in the game to be making the most stereotype of Japanese imagery possible, which I don't think was intentionally antagonistic or hateful, but I also very much am not the important take in this situation. Just a heads up in a sort of this exists kind of way. Fashion games in general do seem pretty cool though. I totally get the appeal of trying to fulfill the requirements while also making the outfits actually appealing. The section of the game that I played was pretty limiting in what was available. There's basically only one right combo for each prompt, with only some mild customization in the makeup and nails being the free area to express. I definitely want to try out a Savvy style game in the future, but this game felt more true to the shovelware vibe, even though everything with that label is sort of relative anyways. Lovers will say nay, and haters will say gay. Do you have your bae with you right now? Do you have an intimate connection with your bae? Are you willing to let it rip with your bae? Blade? Metal Fusion. I am shocked that I didn't pick this up as a kid since I loved the toys and the show. It's the most stupid hobby Annie that came to the USA during its time, and we love it for that. Fun fact, I found out completely by chance that Beyblade started as a video game, so it is fitting that Beyblade returns to a video game here. The vibes, UI, and sound all totally hit on the same energy as the show, flaunting that real cheesy maximalist edge. The Beyblade matches themselves feel really skill-based. Of all the toy battling hobby Annie many games I've played, this system feels the most in-depth. You move by swiping, and like the physical game, you can win by knocking your opponent out or outlasting them. No burst mechanics yet though. Ring outs are worth double, and the first character you're likely to play as uses a Bey that's good at attacking, so that'll be the first strategy you likely learn. Tuning your Bey to maximize your chances to hit on your win condition feels satisfying, and I found myself having to dive into tuning within the first 30 minutes. Outside of battling, there's just little snippets of dialogue. The linear battle challenges are all that's on offer, other than unlocking new characters and new Beys. It's certainly not a terrible spread, but again it feels a little empty. Less like you're getting to interact with the world and more like you're playing a handheld version of the toy game. Not inherently bad, but not reaching the full potential of what a Beyblade game could be. The game's cute in a weird sort of way. I like it. Barbie kills a man. Good for her. Good for her. Barbie and the Three Musketeers, which does the Barbie story thing of renaming Barbie to a setting-appropriate name, in this case Corinne. Corinne wants to be a musketeer defending the royal family of France with her acrobatics and willingness to stab. Booting the game up gives you a scene from the movie this game is based on, which will also frequently feature as the cutscenes between levels. I've always loved having these FMV cutscenes. The DS was the first Nintendo handheld to do them really well. It's just cool to see. I'm sure anyone who watched the movie and picked this game up would be happy to see it in the game too. Corinne and her cat Miette are gonna kill every single small animal and man in the way of getting to France. And along the way, they'll meet up with 3 other characters you can swap to for additional platforming moves, like a grappling hook or a bow. I did not get to unlock the last character, although I assumed they would be able to climb up these ledges. The level designs mainly center around using each character to reach areas to push buttons to unlock doors to keep moving forward. At its best, you're swapping frequently and using each unique move to progress in a state of flow. At its worst, you're climbing through tunnels and stopping every 2 seconds to swat rats, while the game keeps yelling at you that this ceiling is climbable. There's one voice line for this, and it plays every single time you walk near one of these pink sparkles. A lesser man would kill this cat.
Hey, I bet you could climb across this stuff, Corinne.
That's a small gripe though, the vibes alone carry this game, and it also has some solid, albeit slightly convoluted gameplay to back it up. The sprite work on the characters is immaculate, always maintaining appealing silhouettes and conveying action easily. The environments are lush and fairy tale-esque, perfectly suited for the setting. At times tedious, sure, but still schmoovy enough to have its strong moments as well. Barbie assaults a dog. Barbie runs on the rooftops of Paris. Barbie and her friends are swag and cool. Only one game left now. You know, I played my heart out through this next section. I finally got to meet more characters from the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. I found out a little more about my own character and got to enter the first tournament, which was a tag team one. This is where things went downhill. I need a partner, but I can't beat a single NPC on the map. As much as Yu-Gi-Oh loves talking about the heart of the cards and rising above your circumstances with sheer will, the rules of this video game dictate that I can't win. Every opponent is just able to get out bigger, badder guys than I can. So I turned on an infinite money hack, built the strongest deck in the game, and obliterated every single required duel, except the ones with Leo, who is canonically the weakest of the main cast. I never won a duel against Leo. But yeah, I hacked in all the cards, and honestly, that was the best decision I possibly could have made. A decade of pent-up frustration simply vanished. And once again, I could enjoy my card games on motorcycles. The vibes, the music, the art, and even the gameplay of Yu-Gi-Oh that I still love, despite feeling like a conspiracy theorist whenever I try to explain it to someone. Oh, and if you're wondering how the story ends, you fight 4 identical clones of yourself to summon the Crimson Dragon through dual energy, but because you were all made in a lab, it doesn't work. So the chief of police, who made all 5 of you in his lab in a bid to obtain the ultimate weapon and reshape the world under his rule, decides you're not worth his time and just kind of lets you go. Then you win a card game tournament and the game ends with literally every plot thread still left blowing in the wind. They pretty explicitly did this in order to sell the next year's release, which they did for 8 years in a row. That's a very Konami thing to do. But I also love it in the way that watching a building demolition is fun. Stardust Accelerator is 110% Yu-Gi-Oh! I looked this game in the eyes and recognized that even though I was capable of doing all the steps needed to complete it legit, that grind just wasn't the experience I was looking for, or even had the time to have. I still had a great time with it. All the build up in my head, that narrative of needing to beat it legit, that was all fake. I didn't need to do any of that to have a good time or interact with the world of 5Ds, and that's why I was playing in the first place. The only person I had to prove that to was myself. I also found a great Bakugan game on the DS along with some really good forgotten titles, so if you want more shovelware, I've got a card on the screen for you to click. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.